Your data is suffering and your company is the last to know. Most founders are out there hiring analysts, building dashboards, and wiring together 8 different tools, and the whole time 80% of the answers they need are already sitting inside the data they already own. They just can't get to it. Every team in your company is spinning up their own little AI agent, pulling from different sources, getting different answers. Your sales numbers don't match marketing, marketing doesn't match ops. This is a data chaos problem, and it's getting worse by the week. It's bleeding you dry. And the scariest part isn't what you can see, it's what your data already knows that you don't. Your data knows your capacity is about to collapse. It knows where you're bleeding before you feel the cut. So if your company's data could talk to you every morning before you made a single decision, what's the first thing it would tell you that you've been too afraid to ask? Welcome to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes, and today's guest is Burak Karakan, co-founder and CEO of Bruin. If you're a founder who's tired of your data living in a dozen different places and never telling you anything useful, this one's going to hit different. And the AI for Founders newsletter at aiforfounders.co is where we break down exactly how founders like you can turn tools like this into unfair advantages. It lands in your inbox, not in your spam folder, because we actually write it and it's not spam. Head to aiforfounders.co and get in before everyone else figures out what you're about to know. And if this episode made you think, the kindest thing you can do is leave a 5-star review, because great guests read those before they say yes. And right now I want to tell you about Kitcaster. If you're a founder, an executive, or an expert who wants to get booked on top podcasts, Kitcaster is the agency that makes it happen. They have the relationships, the strategy, and the track record to get your story in front of the audiences that matter most. Stop waiting to be discovered and go to kitcaster.com to start getting booked. That's Kitcaster by Moburst. Burak, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me.
You betcha. Where are you calling from today?
I am currently in Istanbul, Turkey.
Istanbul. Okay, cool. Yeah. And are you HQ'd out of Berlin?
Well, it's a mixed situation at this point. We are like pretty much a remote company. We have a lot of folks in Istanbul, some people in Berlin, some people in UK, and then spread across the globe, a couple of remote folks as well.
Cool. Let's start with Istanbul. Tell me about the tech community in Istanbul.
Well, very interesting place Istanbul is. You know, it's quite large. It's very international. There's a lot of builders. There's a huge mobile gaming culture here. There's like a couple of unicorn companies, gaming companies that came out of Istanbul. So you can find a lot of gaming folks here, and quite a lot of like strong builders. I think Turkey is in an interesting place where it's very close to Europe in terms of time zone, so it makes it very easy to work across the whole European market and the American market as well, and has some pretty good schools and stuff. So, I mean, I was away for quite a few years, and now coming back, I feel nice to be back. You know, it's nice to have some like excited, driven folks around me that just like, you know, burning with desire to make it. So
love it. Yeah. And it seems like that's the theme, you know, you talk about historical cities, that's got to be number one, right? It's up there with Rome. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy. Like Istanbul's crazy. Like you're just going to walk around and you're going to see like walls that are like hundreds of years old, and people are just like having some tea next to it, you know. It's quite big as well. Like the core Istanbul is quite central and relatively small, but you can smell the history in the city, which is very nice. You know, it's definitely a well recommended visit. You're gonna have there's some great food around here, very multicultural. So, you know, if you're ever like making a stop by here, you should spend a couple days.
I would love to. Yeah, it definitely seems like that. It's that kind of place historically. It's a place for ideas to coalesce, for cultures to kind of merge together. It's always been that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's it's a very interesting mixture of like Eastern culture and the Western culture, sort of like putting them all in a single bowl and mixing them up. And there's like a lot of synthesis that comes out of that. It's quite unique in that sense. You know, it's not like I lived in Europe for like a bit more than 6 years. It's a lot more heterogeneous than that, because it mixes a lot of different cultures, and that's what makes it beautiful. So regardless of where you are, you're probably going to find like a nice corner of the city that would feel like home, you know, or that you will make it home for yourself. So I really like that.
I got a really random question for you. So, a lifetime ago, I was the music director at a famous jazz club here in Denver.
Okay.
And one of the kind of regulars was a guy in the witness protection program. He was an Israeli gangster and turned state's evidence and ended up in Denver and would hang out. One of the coolest guys I ever met in my life. He was awesome.
Okay.
But he always would say, he's like, Ryan, you look Turkish. You look Turkish. Do I look Turkish?
You kind of do, actually. You definitely do. I mean, look, the glasses put you in a different mood. I'll give you that.
So like, here we go.
Take the absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Really? I look Turkish.
You look very much Turkish. Yeah, you can easily pass as Turkish. Easily, easily. I didn't notice that actually before. It's very true.
I wonder what that's about. Interesting. He was also convinced I was a boxer. He's like, you have the puffy eyes of a boxer. You're a Turkish boxer. I'm like, all right, man.
Yeah, you could be. Yeah, you could be. You could. You seem like a dangerous guy, man.
I'm glad we got that out of the way. Thank you for clearing up this 20-year-old mystery. I guess it's true. I'll have to go back to 23andMe and see what's going on.
I'm glad to help. Yeah, glad to help. But let me know the results. Yeah, I'm quite curious now.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Okay, let's dive in. I want to learn all about your company, Bruin, because it's very interesting, and I love the design of the website since I've seen it last. It looks very clear, very clean. It says, "Say hello to your AI data analyst." So give us an idea of Bruin, and the website is getbruin.com, kind of what you do and who your ideal customer is.
We are building in an AI data analyst, basically. It is an AI agent that you can connect it to your data warehouse. You can connect it to your different data sources. You can ask any question in Slack, in Teams, in our web UI, and get an answer within 90 seconds. The core idea behind that, so I'll take a step back. We worked, both my co-founder and I, we worked with a lot of data before. We worked in big companies, helped a lot of small companies to build their infrastructure as well. And essentially, we started off our journey trying to build an easy to use and manage data platform for humans. And that ended up evolving into what Bruin is today. And with AI agents becoming a thing, we eventually said, okay, well, if we made humans productive, there's a very good chance that we would be able to make AI agents productive as well. That's how our AI analyst was born. The core sort of benefit is what normally would take hours, if not days, now takes minutes. And you can ask any question. You can get reliable answers out of that. It will actually use the data that you have inside your database. And all the actions your agent takes are verifiable, or they're traced, so you can go and validate every step. And suddenly the time to insight starts becoming a non-issue, basically. We work with companies that are smaller than 500 people, mostly. We have some bigger multinational customers as well, but we tend to work well with companies that are obsessed with impact, and the companies that have some questions, really. So, I mean, there's a lot of organizations out there that do not really have many questions to ask. We prefer to work with those that actually have questions that they can ask, and if they get the answers reliably, they can act on that. That tends to be sort of like younger, more agile organizations, and also forward-thinking teams that are not afraid of AI.
Cool. And kind of where we're at right now is companies that want to run, they're really encouraging their teams to use AI tools. And one of the problems I see is you have everyone who is coding agents with Claude Code, but in their particular silo. So what data they're pulling from is different from the agent that their other team is pulling from. So is one way to think about this is kind of like a giant MCP where like all of the company's data can be stored in one place, kind of have one centralized agent to rule them all, kind of thing?
That's a very nice way to put it. The only little addition I would make is it's not us that stores the data. The data still lives in your data warehouse, your database, and we make this data accessible to the rest of your organization. Essentially, if you have a 24/7 data agent that's reliable, that can get you accurate answers, in a minute, living in your Slack account, that allows a lot of people in the company to start now being able to ask questions and get answers, and then use those answers to change their decisions, to iterate on the business, right? And the fact that this is centralized means that now you have full visibility into how people in the company are interacting with the data, if there are any common pain points, if there are common pitfalls, they might be making mistakes when they're looking into the data, and this in addition makes data governance much easier. So you know who's accessing what and how, etc. If you compare this with basically everyone trying to build their own versions internally inside the organization, now you have suddenly like 15 different products competing internally, everyone doing it their own way. Some of them have strengths over the other ones, but you basically lose the plot because everyone is, pulling in a different direction, So Bruin allows you to eliminate that. Plus, it's like you get the onboarding takes about like 2 minutes. You can ask your first question in about 2 minutes, and if that excites you, then Bruin might be a good idea to try that.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, because otherwise, if we're like, the guy in the office next to me is like, no, we can do this. I just need, access to absolutely everything. And now IT's got my inbox credentials and my Google Docs, and they've got my Slack history and all this stuff, where it's like, no, I need to make sure this doesn't just leak into God knows where, the open internet,
Yeah.
So, and people are definitely doing that. Like right now is they're trying to find a centralized place. So this becomes kind of like the central protected home. And I'm assuming there's access levels so that you can like see some people have visibility into these things. Some people don't have visibility into these things. These things always stay on our machine and are never connected. Am I safe to assume that?
Absolutely. So we allow teams to control basically who can access what, who can ask what types of questions that can be answered with what data that they have available, have very granular control over all of these different agents and their permissions across different even Slack channels. So you can do things like, hey, I connect this AI agent to a marketing channel. Marketing people should only have access to this and this and that data, right? Whereas I have another executive channel that will need to have a lot of access to the sensitive internal data as well, right? And these are living in completely different places. So the organization admins have full control and visibility over who can access what, and they can even define completely separate credentials, completely separate access rights. But we're building something that we wish we would use for our own company as well, and that's what we're doing as well. So. Yes, you can control a lot of these different aspects of access control. We also offer different deployment models, so you can use our cloud offering as like a managed product. We have like a hybrid model where we can deploy part of our data plane, part of our product into your environment, so it does not have any access to sensitive data. We also allow deploying in full on-premise environments, where if the organization has their own AI models, if they host their own large language models themselves, we're able to make our agent work with that too. So depending on your appetite, we can meet you there.
This episode is brought to you by a dangerous idea. It's called reading, specifically the AI for Founders newsletter. 47,000 founders strong now, and it's the good stuff. No top 10 AI tools that will change your life written by someone who doesn't ship product. It's just real breakdowns of what's actually working in AI. Who's raised, who failed, who pivoted, and which founders quietly built $1 million in ARR while everyone else was arguing on X. It's written for people building with AI. Every week you get tactical frameworks, unfair advantages, breakdowns of real companies, and the occasional existential question about whether your startup is intelligent or just well-branded. It's free, it's sharp, it might mildly offend your current workflow. Go to aiforfounders.co and subscribe before your competitor does. Because the only thing worse than being replaced by AI is being replaced by a founder who reads. That's the newsletter at aiforfounders.co. Now back to the show. It's incredible. I had a conversation with 3 agency owners last week that they were talking about like, oh, we're going to make giant MCPs and integrations into all of our clients into specific things. And I was like, bro, are you sure you want that liability? Like you talking about data governance, if there's some kind of like misfire or slip, a whoops, dude, that is litigation waiting to happen, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I
So,
mean, maybe you should introduce them to me, you know?
yeah, no, but I know from now on, I'm gonna be like, hey, Bruin is your first stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
speaking about that too, you know, we're starting to introduce like our AI coworkers and kind of thinking of them as an org chart, largely because it makes sense to our brains. So, you know, if we're looking at the org chart, like Bruin would be this is like, is this like data compliance officer? And how would I kind of use it within like, if I'm spinning up other agents, if I'm spinning up a research and development kind of agent, or I'm spinning up a marketing reporting agent, is there kind of channels that you could say like, you know, look at our projected pipeline and give me a outlook of where most prospects are coming from, this kind of thing, and it would be able to kind of pull from the tools we're using, but also make projections based on kind of like where it sees we're going.
Absolutely. So the way I imagine Bruin and sort of like these sorts of products evolving in the future is we're going to have a lot of different AI agents working in different domains, and those agents will need to collaborate just as humans do as well. They're just going to use different means of collaborating, and in that world, Bruin essentially serves as your virtual data team, right? So any agent or a human being in your organization that needs to have access to data, that has any questions about data, that wants to get some forecasts, predictions, past reports, all, or simply asking like, what data do we have available? Do we already pull this data? Do we already have this data accessible? They can now suddenly ask Bruin about all of those and get answers in seconds. This is why we connect to Slack for humans. We connect to Teams for humans. We have a web UI, but we also expose our full capabilities both as like a raw API as well as an MCP server. So if you have other agents that now want to programmatically interact with our agent, they can do so, right? So we're already seeing like early signs of this where teams are starting to spin up their own marketing agents, where before they can make informed decisions, they need access to past data. And now they're suddenly connecting to our APIs to ask AI-generated questions and then get the answers back and feed them back into AI.
Really?
Another very interesting scenario that I haven't thought of before is one of our customers is dealing with a lot of inbound support tickets, right? And many of their support tickets requires the support agents to actually go and validate if the customer has purchased a certain thing, if they have actually seen what they claim to have seen, if they've done what they claim to have done. This is a lot of data work. So even though they had their support agent, they had to build a lot of like data capabilities into their agent, which obviously it's a profession of its own, you know. So what they do now is they basically connected their support agent to our AI analyst, and then every incoming support ticket automatically gets routed to our agent, which then pulls data, feeds it back into the support agent, which now can generate over 95% of the support answers. And it knows if the customer's claims are accurate. It knows what the data is. It knows how much the customer paid for a certain product, what they have done, what they have seen, etc. All validated, which would normally take like 2 to 3 hours per user, now takes around like 40 seconds. You know,
Yeah.
and suddenly you start seeing different constraints. Your world has changed.
Great. You know, and like, because pulling reports is laborious and there's always constraints on what you can get within what dashboard, and you got to pull it out of here and look for that. And it never really gives you exactly what you want.
Yeah.
You know, so for example, what I want is to look at results from my sales team and say, go through the Google calendars of every single discovery call, refer that to, you know, who's closed, and analyze the let's say all of the sales call information to see what discrepancies exist for a closing sales call and a non-closing sales call. Things like that, like deep
Yeah.
curiosity into like the processes that are getting kind of maybe lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the reports is like the first obvious example of this. It's very slow and painful. There's a lot of like you can either build like your custom agents that you can do, that you try to fit into your scenarios, which sometimes might be a good fit, or there's product like ours. But I think that's only the beginning. The more interesting part for me is, okay, you take care of like doing reporting for retrospectively. So you look at what happened in the past. Now, can we make predictions about what's going to happen in the future based on the data that we already have available? And can we take actions based on those predictions to either make them better or to prevent them from getting worse, right? So for instance, if you notice that you have some team members that have some upcoming vacations for a couple of weeks, and suddenly like 2 weeks down the line, your capacity is going to get worse. And then you also predict that your incoming calls that are scheduled per salesperson is going to increase over the next couple of weeks. Now you're suddenly looking at the capacity problem where you're going to lose a lot of deals in the process. Can agents proactively inform you about this upcoming problem they notice and then help you take action to begin with? And then at some point, eventually being able to take action by themselves, such as, I don't know, maybe hiring on-demand salespeople, maybe hiring AI sales agents for you down the line, or maybe helping you manage your spend, even if you're doing like, let's say, I don't know, paid marketing, and then you can say like, hey, I mean, it doesn't matter if we can pull these people in. We don't have the capacity to serve them. We might as well not burn the money. So yes, the reports is very it's saving a lot of time today. But what excites me more is the future perspective. Like a lot of what we do is going to change. Not because of us. There's like this the ways of doing business is completely changing, right? And that excites me a lot more. And data sits at the core of that, because if you have clean data, if you have data that is accessible, that is accurate, that is easy to understand, now suddenly you have a map from the past that tells your future, right? And based on the future, you can take a lot of actions that will result in a lot of improvements in how we do business. And I'm very excited to be sitting in the core of that domain.
It's amazing. It really is. And it's the kind of shift that I'm trying to make mentally is that like, okay, it's smarter than me now. And now IQ is free. So now what is my job? It's kind of discernment and taste. So when I hear you describing the product, immediately I'm thinking like, okay, I want to say, everybody that churned in 2025, enlist them into a re-engagement sequence on instantly and use the sequence that's re-engagement instantly too. And just like start having ideas. But what you're talking about is probably even more valuable, which is like having them analyze and see the holes that I'm blind to, not outside of the scope of my ideas. It's like, I'm thinking sale, but they're like, no, you're bleeding over here though. Like, let's patch up where you're bleeding and then we can go get into your ideas. So how do you build this kind of into a product where everything is kind of reactive at this point still? It's a chatbot or we're in Slack, so it's waiting for me to engage. So is that something you encourage, just to say like, hey, Bruin, what are my blind spots?
100%. So that's one of my favorite questions that I ask during onboarding. Because I'm like, hey, what can I ask you? And it will come out with like a bunch of answers based on the data that it seems relevant, and then I'll start digging deeper into some of those vague ones, just to be able to have that mental exercise of, okay, there's like a thinking being on the other side of the table here that allows us to play together and dig deeper. I think we are beyond the point of just treating these as parroting predictive machines. It's a lot more. It's a lot closer to intelligence. It's a lot smarter than me. And this if we acknowledge and accept that fact and make it a part of, if we embrace that into our workflows, suddenly we start thinking about how do we enable them to make the most of what we can do with our data. In the example that you gave, you can still orchestrate these different agents to take care of some of these some of the ideas that you might have. You give some hypotheses, etc. But what I find fascinating is now we have these machines that can do the same exercise that you can, but 1,000 times more efficiently than a human being can. In parallel, can test out a ton of ideas in parallel, observe their results, see what works, see what doesn't, and then keep iterating from there, right? And this is obviously happening in software engineering already. There's a lot of Like Carpathy recently has published like a very interesting project called Auto Research, where basically you give an AI agent a criteria to optimize for, a ways to validate its output, and then you let it go crazy, and it constantly keeps iterating and improving. Imagine being able to do this with every part of your company. You do have all of that data. As you take actions, you're generating even more data, right? So suddenly, what a marketing person has to do in terms of optimizing their campaigns, you might now have hundreds of agents doing this in parallel. All of them are generating data that flows into your organization. Now, suddenly, that data can be used by your operations team, by your logistics team. It can be used by your product team. It can be used by your finance team. All of these suddenly start becoming possible, where we're multiplying our efforts in a much larger scale, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that is if you let all of these go wild without any way to validate their output, without any way to sort of gathering all that data, now suddenly you're looking at like a Wild West, right? And that needs to be that if you make data an afterthought when you're designing systems like this, that Wild West comes very quickly, So that is what sort of that was one of the things that kept us building in this space. It's like it's an integral part of getting more efficient. There's no way that we're going to be able to make these agents work without giving them access to data. Can we give them access to data in a safe and reliable and an accessible way? Yes. Then suddenly we unlock a lot of different use cases.
Love it. And let's kind of hover here for a minute. There used to be this commercial in the 90s that would play, and it would say, "Do you know where your children are?" And it was supposed to, like, I don't know, awake something in some parents that didn't know where their kids were or something. But you could kind of do the same thing now, which is like, do you know where your agents are? because if you got two OpenClaw instances and they're just running on loops, it's like you might not. You probably don't. So with Bruin, how do you make sure you know where Bruin is and what or what not he's doing?
Yeah. So basically, it all starts from like a solid data foundations. As part of the onboarding, you get a bunch of quality checks that allow you to say, okay, is this data good enough for Bruin to operate on, and does this allow Bruin to generate meaningful analysis based on the data and metadata that you have given us, right? So this already allows you to have tight control over what the agent can and cannot do. Now, this has to be combined with strict access control principles. In the end, if you give an AI agent today, like a full admin capabilities, full access to every piece of data, full access to do whatever you want within your organization, there's probably like some problems waiting for you to happen, regardless if it's Bruin or not. Like let's be real. But if you combine our granular agent capabilities with strict access control on different platform side, so that for every agent you give exact access to exactly what it needs, this already allows you to let it go wild, because there's not much it can do to go wild. Like if it only has read-only access to 2 of your marketing tables inside your Snowflake data warehouse, how much harm could it do? The worst it can do, obviously, is that it can generate inaccurate answers, and then now your team suddenly can use that answers to make inaccurate decisions. But in order to prevent that, Bruin already includes a bunch of additional checks that an output of an agent is being controlled by another agent. Your team gets notifications on a regular basis in terms of what's happening where. For every analysis, every answer you get a link that takes you to individual agent sessions that allows you to exactly see what the agent do and how did it get to that answer, right? So suddenly you have eliminated a ton of different types of problems already, and now you can let your agents move a lot freer. Yeah. I guess that would be the core of how you know where Bruin is and it doesn't go wild. We do offer additional controls such as like, can Bruin have access to these external network sources? Is it allowed to access the internet at all? Is it allowed to do this and this and that? Or can it throw that kind of queries? Can it run a query that will cost me more than $2 at a time? A lot, like very granular control we allow you to do, but depends on your risk appetite, basically.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's almost worth the price of admission just so you don't have to log in with two-factor authentication to 17 platforms when you're asking a couple of questions.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm really excited about the future of agentic AI because it just becomes APIs. And so you find, okay, this tool specialized in what it's doing really well, but like I'm not trying to look all over your platform to solve my problems. I'm really excited about agents like this largely because I know there's features and stuff I'm not using in my software that I just don't know about it. So if you could just ask it straight up, like, hey, what should I be doing? And it's like, oh, well, you actually know you're in the pro plan of all this stuff. You could try this out. Like, oh, okay, maybe I will do that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the fascinating part of this business has been to, suddenly shift our thinking from not just building for humans, but also building for agents. Because precisely like in order to allow agents to do that kind of investigation or that kind of like reasoning or what you have available, the tools need to fit how they use. We have internally built some tooling that allows us to get feedback from different types of agents based on how our APIs work. Like if we build an internal, like a first version of like part of our command line tool, we suddenly run a bunch of agents on them as if they're human beings and ask them to give us feedback. So and we run some benchmarks to see which one of those were they able to use more efficiently on certain types of tasks, right?
What was feedback from the agents? Like, how do they want you to present data and information to them?
They really dislike when it's multiple steps. So they usually try to get things into like a single command, single space, more efficient interaction model, which is not trivial for humans because if you try to build like a single command that encompasses like a lot of different functionality, now you suddenly build this giant command line tool that has like, I don't know, 200 options, which would be incomprehensible for humans. But you're not building for humans anymore. You're building for agents. Agents are great at generating those commands, which means they can surgically generate commands that would get only the information they want and they need. And then what would normally take, I don't know, 200 seconds to finish now starts finishing in 30 seconds, because like agent was able to create a lot more efficient layer to communicate with your backend APIs. They really dislike when we present them human-like interfaces when it comes to like command line tools and stuff. So it's what my team likes is not always what my agents like.
Interesting. What are some of the human things it doesn't like?
I mean, for instance, for humans, we use naming a lot. For instance, we have like a command line tool that allows you to interact with your data pipelines in our platform, and humans tend to use the name of a pipeline, but there can be different pipelines across different projects and teams with the same name. For humans, they primarily work in the context of their single team, so they use names, right? For agents, when they start using names, it starts getting confusing because there's multiple pipelines with the same name and agents work across different teams. So they tend to prefer IDs a lot more than having human readable names,
Specificity.
Yeah, and this also allows them to, the other interesting thing was humans like seeing the information in like a much easier to understand way and like tables and stuff, like we like our visuals. Agents don't care. Give them like raw programmatically accessible data. They love consuming that type of data, and suddenly you can stuck a lot more different depth of information into the same response, and the agent will make use of that. Whereas for humans, like if you design a multi-dimensional table, it already gets complicated. Agents can handle that complexity. So it's really a different audience. It's quite a surprising. It's a very interesting thing. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't have imagined this a couple of years ago. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they've gotten smart pretty quick. I mean, it's really the last 6 months has been like where I'm like, okay, they're smarter than me now for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Didn't take much, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
mean, I would say, like, after November was, I think November, sort of early December was sort of, for me, it was like, wow, you know,
wow.
now,
Yeah.
like, this wasn't possible before, uh, and look what we can do now, right?
Yeah.
And it made, I mean, many of the ideas that are not possible today are not necessarily novel, you know? It's just that they were not possible a year ago. They were not possible 2 years ago. They were possible, but they were not accurate. They were not working well. They were more frustrating than actually bringing value. Whereas now, I mean, we do have customers that have stopped hiring for data analysts.
Yeah.
You know, they're instead like hiring for different roles, and they are suddenly given access to a lot of different members, that there are a lot of different team members, to use the AI agent instead of making them talk to the data team directly, right? We do see a real shift in how teams think about their budgets now. How do they think about the access to data? You know, how
Yeah.
do they think about making that data useful within the organization? And and that was not possible a year ago.
Yeah.
Quite.
Yeah. I mean, it's the capabilities, but like also these predictive qualities, the real it's uh um the analyst, that and again, these are kind of vague concepts because like how do you really measure intelligence? Well, there's probably testing, and when they release a new model, they're like, oh, it passed this benchmark for this, but it kind of gets all washed over. Where it ends up is you kind of wake up to it. It's like when you're talking to a buddy, well, I'm talking to you. Like I can tell in the first couple of seconds, I'm like, oh, I better mind my P's and Q's. Burak's really smart. So, but with the agents, it takes maybe a little bit more time. Where you're like, ooh, this is different. Like the response I'm getting is smarter. It's faster. It's like it's taking into consideration additional context. I don't need to prompt it as much. It's kind of starting to intuit like what I want. Its memory is getting longer, and these aren't things that necessarily show up on spreadsheets. So I guess that's just the interesting thing as it begins to get intelligence. Is there's almost like a recognition that just kind of like emerges.
I mean, this is precisely the same reason why, benchmarks are good. Like we have quite a lot of benchmarks internally. We do like a lot of them, but like in the end, it boils down to like vibes. That's the best
Yeah.
kind of like check that I do with, like, if there's like a new model that we think that might work well, we connect it to some of our data sets and we start testing it out. And the core thing I'm looking for is, does it feel intelligent, and does it feel smarter than the other alternative here? And that smarter can be in different ways. It can be that it analyzes the data better, but also it interprets the human requests a lot better. It comes up with proactive suggestions in a lot smart way, much more smarter. And this essentially, what I call that vibe check, is sort of how we in the end decide what goes into the end product. And I do agree with you that I think, like things like, I don't know, like weird prompting tricks, or like different tooling that we build around the AI, etc. I mean, they matter today. They're likely not going to matter in 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line.
Yeah.
And suddenly, if you're building a product, now you have a product problem where you're not building for today's problems. You need to try to think ahead to build what's going to be the problem 6 months down the line with the model capabilities that are available then, so that you can try to be ahead of the game. You know?
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, a year ago, it was like prompt engineering. Here's the right way to ask. Act
yeah,
like a data analyst from a senior, Fortune 500 company, and look at this one spreadsheet. And
yeah,
if you didn't say it just right, then the output wouldn't. Now it's just like you don't need that at all.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Just
yeah,
like, doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Like one of the interesting things was, you can see the same with RAG. Like we've built a lot of systems that allowed agents to fetch information using like our like embeddings, and like try to like fill everything into the context, trying to fetch ahead of time. Don't get me wrong, it's still relevant, but suddenly we got models that are capable of just like navigating a ton of information that are just in plain text files and inside the code base. And
Totally. Yeah. In a
and that
year, RAG will be out. It'll understand the tone of my voice. You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I
this
mean,
is
that's
this is madness. Like it's crazy.
so
It's mad.
fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm probably gonna, maybe this is my challenge for this week. I'm gonna start talking to it for real, you know?
Yeah.
So like if it makes a mistake, I'll be like, yeah, you're real sure about that? Like start being sarcastic and messing around with it. You know?
What I wanted to have for a while is a lot of the frontier labs do not update their voice models, so voice models are usually behind. I
Yeah.
actually do want to have that chat, and
Yeah.
I want to have like, just like a casual conversation because I think they're definitely capable. And one of the things that we prototyped internally was, can we make our analyst work that way as well, where you call it and then ask questions in a human language, just like by speaking to it, and it would answer you back, and then you get your analysis in a minute with like a Slack DM, for
Yeah.
instance, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of these different interaction patterns that we're going to see with agents that we're not used to yet, So it takes a lot of experimentation.
So exciting. All right. Now, when I look at your website, one thing that I notice is there's no pricing. So, what's the business model and how are you charging customers?
A lot of our core tech is open source. If anyone goes to our website, they can see our all of the links to our GitHub pages. We have recently launched a new module inside Bruin Academy that allows you to build your own AI data analyst yourself using all of our open source tooling, so you don't have to pay us. For our cloud offering, we do not accept public signups for now, and we are about to get into general availability soon. The pricing depends on the size of your data, the types of the data that you have, the number of people in the organization that will be accessing this data, as well as any other regulatory requirements that the organization might have, such as different deployment models, different types of agreements that we would need to sign, etc. We work with very small gaming companies all the way down to large multinational retailers with thousands of real stores in the world, and each have different things that they ask for us. There have been cases where I have signed my left kidney, so I would have to make sure that we get a good deal out of that as well. But basically, it's a case by case scenario.
Interesting. And is that because just the stage of business you're in, or is that a kind of a strategic design mission right now?
I would say it's a stage of the business that we're in for now.
Yeah.
So I do not from the big. So we're 2.5 years old. From the beginning, we didn't want anyone in the team to spend any time building any billing software, right? We wanted to put all of our attention into building a good product, solving customers' real problems, and then we believed that money would follow. It has followed, and the way that we worked was essentially based on some of these criteria. We come up with a pricing package that we agree upfront. The customers always pay the same monthly amount, and they don't have to be worried about. They get like a very predictable pricing, and we don't have to worry about building a billing infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So we are likely going to do that. It's just that we've been pushing that down the line because, to be quite frank, building an analyst sounds a lot more fun than building a billing software, regardless how much of that can be automated. That has exactly been the reason why we're doing it as like a custom pricing.
When you're in a heck of a position to see what demand is too. So if you're building broad analysts across multiple sectors, what you see is probably patterns emerge, and then you're like, okay, actually, this connection to this result and outcome is really actually hot and in demand. So you could almost spin a product like that off and send it on its way with in a very specific silo. Are you doing kind of product validation through all this as well?
100%. So we're working with a lot of different industries. The good thing about what we do, like you said, is that it's applicable to a lot of different industries. We do a lot of these kinds of experiments and validations, and we do get our hands very much dirty. We almost act like as a service company, even though we're not. We're not charging the customers for it. We just like getting deeper into the problems because that's essentially where the core, the golden feedback lies, right? So we try to get ourselves into all of these problems as deep as we can, and then the patterns start emerging suddenly. One example is we work with a lot of gaming and app companies, you know,
Yeah.
and that's an industry we understand very well. We work with tens of different companies in the space, and suddenly we can now build solutions that are specialized for gaming or app companies that doesn't exist in the market that saves them like days worth of time every week, you know. But one interesting part of that that pricing equation is this flexibility also allows us to be a lot more flexible for different types of teams where, we work with founders go through tough times, they have different milestones, they need support in some cases, and that gives me the flexibility to offer them a pricing model that's not just standard. It just, we can make it variable. We can make it change over time. We can make it like, I don't know, conditional based on something that you need from us, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't know, you have, let's be real, like you have cash flow problems. It's fine. We're going to accommodate that. We're not going to die. We're around, we have a ton of money in the bank. We're going to be fine. Let's actually solve your problems. And then we build a real relationship, which is why I'm really proud that none of our customers have stopped working with us. Like companies went down, they went bankrupt, but no one actually willing to stop using the Bruin platform. So that's the kind of relationship we want to build with.
Yeah, and that's the humanity that they're talking about that AI can never replace. You know what I mean? Is like to have that customer first, ride or die mentality, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're trying our best. I think like without that feedback, those customers made the product what it is today. We're 100% doubling down on that. We're going to try our best to keep it there forever. Like we have dedicated Slack channels with all of our customers. Pretty much all of my customers have my personal phone number. Anyone knows that if something happens, they know who to call. And they know that there's a human being on the other side of the table, and I am part of every sales call. I am part of every onboarding. Everyone knows us,
Yeah.
and that might not be the most scalable way of doing business in the world. I don't know. But it's fine. It's fine. Like I went to an event a couple weeks ago. Like 6 of my customers were there. It was like a party for me.
Amazing.
That's friends. It's such a great feeling.
I love it. We got a couple minutes left here. Aside from Bruin, what else are you playing around with? What else are you building?
So we're definitely, like a lot of organizations, we're spending a lot of time internally thinking about like software factory. We're trying to think of ways of getting ourselves more and more productive in terms of like building software all around. I am personally spending a bit of time these days with software generated music. I play music. I have little little instruments around. I like
Nice.
playing myself some guitar and stuff, and I'm trying to play these days with the help of AI with some procedurally generated music. Not much on that front yet. I still feel more comfortable on the guitar myself, but hopefully I'm gonna get better. And trying to figure
Kind of stuff you doing? Arena rock? Are you doing trap music? What kind of music you making?
I'm trying a bit of trap these days. Yeah, just playing, just taking a chill. Yeah.
Burak, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. GetBruin.com is the website to go check this out. It's open source. Go play with it. You know where to find Burak. Actually, to that point, what's the best place that people can reach out to you online?
I would suggest LinkedIn is probably the best place to reach out to me directly. We also have a Slack community for our open source users. I'm online there 24/7 as well. So if anyone jumps in, search my name, I'll be there.
Amazing. And before we get out of here, I know internetsociety.org is a favorite charity of yours. We want to give a shout out to them. Give us a quick rundown of exactly what Internet Society does.
Internet Society allows basically making internet accessible to the rest of the world across different initiatives. They are a group of very smart people, very hardworking people, trying to make sure internet gets all around the globe, and everyone gets access to the same chance. They're one of our customers. I love working with them. They're an absolute stellar team. So shout out to them.
Shout out indeed. Again, that's getbruin.com. I'll link Burak's LinkedIn in the show notes below. So if you're listening to this, go down the show notes, and he's a great follow on LinkedIn. Really appreciate the time today.
Ryan, thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate the conversation, and thank you.
You are about to spend anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 on your kid's college education, and that's not a small bet. And right now, there's a very real chance that they graduate and can't find a job, not because they weren't smart enough, not because they didn't work hard enough, but because the job market changed and nobody told them. Employers are hiring AI native candidates, people who don't just know their field, but know how to work with AI at a professional level. And most colleges are not teaching this, not even close. AInativestudent.com is the program that fills that gap. It takes high school and college students and teaches them how to actually think and work with AI the way top companies expect on day one, so your investment in their degree actually pays off. You're already paying for tuition, housing, textbooks. This is the one thing that actually makes it all worth it. Go to AInativestudent.com because a diploma is a starting point. Being AI native is what gets them hired. That's AInativestudent.com.